Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. This is our February financial wellness webinar. For today's topic, we're going to focus on a strategy, more like a process that you can follow to gain control of your finances. We'll talk about some tools that are available to help you, and we'll touch on some new rules that went into effect this year as part of legislation that was passed back in 2022. By way of introduction, my name is Micah Potashnik. I work alongside the 40W Advisors team, and in addition to being a financial advisor, I teach financial planning to students at American University in Washington, D.C. Chris isn't able to join us today, so I'll be flying solo. Before we jump in, just a couple quick administrative notes. Everyone is currently in listen-only mode. We certainly encourage questions and comments, but ask that you use the questions or chat box that are on the screen. Also, by way of compliance, this webinar is just for education and informational purposes only. Nothing should be taken as financial advice specific to your situation. Finally, we have made some handouts available for you to use as an additional tool to help with your planning. One of those handouts is simply things to consider when doing your 2024 planning. I encourage you to check those out in addition to some tools I will show you during the presentation. So let's jump in. The reason why we are so passionate about this subject is that we know how heavily financial stress weighs on people. Almost 3 out of every 4 Americans suffer from financial stress. Are there things in our control that we can do to help alleviate the stress? The answer is yes. Because even thinking about your finances can cause stress, we sometimes avoid the topic altogether. Financial planning and taking control of your finances can be both liberating and empowering. Financial planning is quite simply identifying where you are today and determining where you want to be in the future and making a point to get from point X to point Y. We make plans all the time in our daily life. Every morning, my wife and I make a plan on how we're going to get through the day. What's scary to most of us about financial planning is that in addition to thinking about the short term, it focuses us to think about the long-term future, which feels like a big commitment when most of us aren't fully sure of what we want. I'm here to tell you that that's okay. Our mission today is to share tools that we can use to help walk you through the process of creating a financial plan. One of the roadblocks when starting planning can be the daunting task of having to go and take inventory of all your various accounts. That means logging into multiple websites and most likely the frustration of forgotten passwords. Not only that, but the values of our accounts change on a day-to-day basis. So we spend all this time today gathering your information, writing down account values, etc. And by tomorrow, those values are already out of date. That's why we highly recommend leaning on some technology tools to help you organize everything in one singular location. What you can see on my screen here is a snapshot of our financial planning portal. It's available to every one of you, and this tool can serve multiple purposes. It can help you organize all your information into one singular location. It will update your information daily, so it can keep track of real-time numbers. It can help keep track of spending, help you set a budget, which we'll talk more about. And it will also allow you to run calculations for your future to see the impact of some of the decisions that you make. If you would like to be set up with your own secure login, you can email us at 40wworkplace@40wadvisors.com. You see on the screen here. So let's now move on to talking about more of the logical process you can follow to help put that plan into place. When we think about financial planning, we sort of think about 5 main steps we suggest you use to approach any sort of financial plan. Number 1 is to get organized. 2 is to identify and prioritize goals. 3, strategize. 4, implement, put that plan into action, and 5, to check in to monitor. We'll spend a couple minutes here and dive into each one of these steps into greater detail. Before you can put any plan in place and before you get started, you first have to understand where you're at financially. So often we see people starting to set goals for themselves when they first got to understand sort of where they sit at overall. And we'd like to break that down in sort of 4 main categories. We have on the screen here those sort of 4 main categories. The first is your income. What are you bringing in? You can find that information on a pay stub. If you have a bank account and you get direct deposits each month, you can check there. But really also focusing on the income you receive after taxes are paid is important. From there, you start looking at, well, what sort of expenditures am I making? Again, if you have a bank account, a credit card, you can follow that there. Record keeping is so important because that's how you can put together a budget. One of my favorite quotes is from a radio personality, Dave Ramsey, and he says, "A budget is telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went." That's why keeping track of your expenses can really help, figure out how much are you saving each month. Then once you figure out how much you're saving each month, you can then take those next steps and figure out how to invest and let the power of compounding do its thing. Then in addition to income expenses, you have your assets and your liabilities. So not just the cash flow side, but everything you own. Maybe that's your home, your investment accounts, your 401ks, but also any liabilities you have. If you have a mortgage, if you have a HELOC, maybe you have a car loan, student loan, credit cards. Those are all your liabilities, and the difference between your assets and your liabilities is your net worth. So once you spend time sort of organizing all the different data points in your financial life, you can then start to create goals for yourself. And that's where step 2 comes into place. Step 2 is the process of actually now setting your goals. And we like to think about goals in sort of 2 different categories. You have your short-term goals and your long-term goals. And I think when it comes to setting goals, one of the most important things is to start putting pen to paper. Actually write down these goals. I personally think that it helps you keep yourself more accountable. So again, we kind of break goals down into 2 categories. The short term, what keeps you up at night? What do you want to be able to do in the next year? Maybe you want to start paying off a credit card bill or student loans, building up for some extra savings in a checking account, saving for a house, do some estate planning, get some life insurance. Those can be some short-term goals. Long-term is some things that you want to be able to do in the future that require some money and planning today. And those small steps today can provide significant dividends down the road. Maybe it's saving just a few extra dollars a month for retirement. If you've had a child and start thinking about your child potentially going to college, setting up a 529 plan to start saving for a child's education. Those are all things that are going to take a long time to build, but you need to start setting some goals today to start getting yourself there. So that's really step 2. So now that we understand our financial situation, we've set some goals for ourselves. Next step is to strategize a plan to achieve that goal. So, when strategizing a plan for yourself, I think it's so important to focus on things that are in our control. Again, one of the big themes of today is taking control. And it's much better use of your time to focus on what you can control than things that are outside of your control. So let's say, for example, you want to save more, whether it's $50 a month, $100 a month. You might not be able to control a pay raise, but you can control your expenses. And that's where writing your expenses down is so important. If your goal is to save an extra $50 or $100 a month, you take a look at your budget, take a look at where your money's going. Maybe you're allocating $200 a month to go out to eat. Maybe there's a way to cut that down to $150. Maybe there's a streaming service that you don't need. There's a lot of sometimes discretionary expenses, things that are not essential to our day-to-day lives that we choose, they're desires that maybe we don't need. So sometimes focusing on those can be extremely useful in sort of finding ways to save. Again, talk to things like protection. If you have a goal of maybe getting some insurance, whether it's making sure your life insurance is up to date, disability insurance. Are you building that emergency fund? What if you have a one-off expense you're not expecting? You want to make sure you're building up some safety net to the side that you can access. When it comes to setting evaluating your goals, making sure you automate your savings. You don't want to kind of wait till after you spend your money and say, oh, do I have some money left over? Maybe as part of your budget, one of those budget items is saving $100 a month. And when you get your paycheck first, you pay yourself first. You allocate some money directly into your savings accounts. And then again, estate planning is so important too, to be thinking about, what would it happen if something happened to yourself prematurely? Do you have a family member relying on you? You know, make sure you have a will in place, powers of attorney. On your 401k accounts, do you have beneficiaries listed? There's a lot of things that are in our control that we can do to put not only ourselves, but our loved ones in a better position down the road as well. So that's really step 3 in strategizing that plan. The next step is to implement, put that plan into action. Again, it's very important to prioritize what's important to you. You might have 5 or 10 goals, and maybe not every single goal is achievable. That's okay. So it comes down to prioritizing what's truly important. I love this chart here. It's one of my favorite charts to show to clients and things like that, because it shows the power of saving and doing a lot of little things today that provide significant dividends down the road. So this chart just puts in perspective, just saving a little bit each month, whether it's $50, $100 extra dollars, up to $500 a month, and seeing the power of those savings over a long period of time. If we look at this big number on the far right screen, this shows that saving $500 a month, an extra $6,000 a year, taking those dollars and investing it. And again, US stock market, S&P 500 returns around 10% a year. You do that for 40 years, you could be adding over $3 million to your balance sheet at the end of 40 years. Maybe your time horizon's a little bit less. Maybe it's only 20 or 30 years. Still, you can be talking another $300,000 up to $1 million in additional savings just by doing some little things today and tomorrow. So that's sort of implementing and putting that plan into action. And then that last step is to monitor. Again, life's going to change. Life is rarely a straight path as much as we'd like it to be. There's going to be curveballs along the way. So that's why financial planning is not just a one and done activity. It's something that you're constantly doing. It's constantly evolving. It's very, very fluid. At the same time, again, not only does your life change, but regulatory things change, income limits or contribution limits change. So staying up to date on those is paramount as well. So up here, we have some of the changes for 2024, things like your 401k contribution limits up a little bit from last year, up about $500. If you're over 50 years old and you do catch-up contributions, it's still an extra $7,500 on top of that. Your IRA accounts, if you contribute to a Roth IRA or regular IRA, contributions for 2024 is $7,000, up from $6,500 last year. And some additional uses of a Roth IRA could be a unused 529 plan if you meet certain qualifications. Student loan payments resumed last year, so maybe that's a factor within your budget. So those are some things that have kind of changed here, and again, that's why financial planning is always an ongoing activity, because these things are constantly evolving and changing over time. So what I thought we could do for the next little bit here is, we have about 15 minutes remaining, is to actually demo our portal here. This portal is available to all employees of the companies that we work with, and it's at no cost to you. Again, as I said earlier, we encourage you to email us to request your own secure access. It's completely private, and it's not shared with your employer. We also encourage you to schedule a time to talk one-on-one with us to help you get started. So with that, I'm going to switch my screen here and show the portal here. Let's see if that works. Perfect. Hopefully you all can see that. So here is an example of our financial planning portal that I mentioned earlier. So this here is just a demo client. This here is sort of the homepage, kind of the data aggregation tool of all our inputs, the data that we enter. You can see that eventually you can list accounts, you can see what your net worth is, investments, things like that. So how do this information get populated? That's where our organizer comes into place here. So Again, talking about having everything not only in a singular location, but accounts updating their balances on a day-to-day basis. You're able within our portal to link all accounts directly into the portal. So you can link your checking account, your investment account, your 401k. If you have any mortgage, you can link that in there. It allows you to not only put everything in one place, but those numbers will constantly update over time. As you're paying off your mortgage, you'll see your balance start to decline. As your hopefully investment account grows in value, you'll see the effect of that. So that's sort of that organizational tool. Again, allows you to link all accounts. You can be putting in things like, let's switch screens here again, your earnings, things like your contributions to a 401k. You can even put in if employers are matching those contributions. All that can be put in here to help Portal also project what values of accounts do over time. Next, we have our workshop page. This workshop page is a great tool to sort of answer some of those questions, like, are your investments properly allocated? Are you saving enough for retirement? So if I click into this, are you saving enough for retirement page? So it's here. You can see kind of, are you on path? Based on your age, are you on path to have your money last throughout retirement? If there's a shortfall, what is your shortfall? What are things you can do to put yourself in a stronger financial position? Again, we have here, in this case, increasing some of your account contributions, maybe reducing expenses, changing retirement years. These are all things that you can maybe need to amend in your everyday life to make sure you're able to have your money last through retirement. So this workshop here is a great place to see some of those tools. Again, we've talked a lot about budgeting and the importance of budgeting and keeping track of expenditures. We have here a spending tool. As you link your credit cards and bank statements to the portal, you can keep track of where your money's going. Again, how much money is going to your mortgages, to shopping, education, food. Have different categories to see where's your money actually headed. Even set budgets for yourself. You have a budget here you can set. I like to be spending $100 for gas and fuel. Are you reaching that budget? Are you going over? Are you going under? All things like that all can be done within the budget portion of the spending tab. Moving on to investments. Again, you're able to see all your investments. It'll take all your holdings from all your accounts. Again, it'll allocate to look at your overall sort of balance sheet. How much money do you have in stocks versus bonds? Not only within the stocks, how much are in large cap versus international stocks versus mid cap? All these different categories of investments you can make, not just investing in stocks and bonds, but pulling back and seeing how those accounts are actually allocated. It aggregates everything in here. The Vault here is one of my favorite tools within the portal because this not only allows you to aggregate your accounts, but it also aggregates different statements. You can put your tax returns in here. You can put W-2s, your wills, your power of attorneys, your life insurance contracts. All these things can be put and uploaded into the shared documents, so everything regarding your financial life is in one singular location. And then the last step is reports. Reports, you can see things like your net worth statement, a cash flow report. So it allows you to sort of see where you're at and sort of if you're on track and making progress. So those are all things that you're able to do within the financial planning portal. And again, highly recommend that you reach out to us to get set up with a login if you'd like. I'm going to switch screens back here to the presentation here. So that's really everything that I kind of wanted to cover today. Again, encourage you to set up time to talk one-on-one with us if you're looking to get started. On the 40W Workplace site, you can see some more information there. As we move forward in 2023, again, next month we're going to start focusing specifically on step 1 of the financial planning process and discuss ways to get and stay organized. You can see our complete webinar schedule on the website as well, so you can stay engaged and focused on joining with us each month. Always feel free to follow us on your social media, and always please reach out with any questions. With that, I don't see any questions in the chat here, but I'll hang around for a minute or two to see if there are any questions in the chat. With that, I just want to thank everyone for your time today. Have a great rest of your Thursday, rest of the week, and look forward to seeing you on March 21st for our next webinar. Thank you and have a great rest of the day.